You know that moment when you're doing something completely ordinary, making coffee, sitting in traffic, scrolling through your phone, and suddenly a number pops into your head, a specific number. Maybe it's what's sitting in your account right now. Maybe it's what you're earning versus what you think you should be earning. Maybe it's a debt that's been quietly sitting in the back of your mind for longer than you'd like to admit. And for a second, you just stare at that number and think, okay, something needs to change. If that happened to you today, I want you to stay with me. Because that moment wasn't random. At some point today, maybe this morning, maybe just a few hours ago, did you look at your finances and feel something shift? Not necessarily bad, not necessarily good, just different. Like you were suddenly seeing a number, a situation, a pattern with slightly sharper eyes than you had yesterday. Or maybe it wasn't money specifically. Maybe it was your work, your job, something about the direction your career is heading. And for a split second, you thought, wait, is this actually working for me? Is this actually where I want to be putting my energy? That moment of clarity, that sudden, almost uncomfortable sharpness, that's worth paying attention to today. Because today is March 9th, 2026, and the moon is in Aries right now. And one of the things this particular placement does very consistently is cut through the fog around practical decisions, especially the ones involving money, work, and what you're actually building with your time. I want to spend most of this video talking about what that actually looks like in real life, because the astrology is interesting. But what's more interesting is how it shows up in the everyday stuff, the conversations you have at work, the numbers you look at in your bank account, the decisions about what to keep doing and what to stop. So let's start with money, because I think that's where a lot of people are feeling this most directly today. There's a specific thing that happens to people financially under this kind of energy. You stop avoiding the numbers. If you've been someone who tends to not look at your bank account too closely, or who has a few financial decisions you've been pushing off, a bill you haven't sorted, a budget you keep meaning to make, a conversation about money you've been postponing with someone, today you might just look at it directly, without the usual avoidance. And the strange thing is, it doesn't feel as overwhelming as you expected. The clarity that comes with this energy actually makes the practical stuff more manageable, not less. Some people today are realizing they need to change something about how money moves in their life, not in a dramatic way, more like, okay, I've been doing this for a while and it's not really working, and I can actually see that now. Maybe you've been spending in a pattern, and today you see it clearly for the first time in months. Maybe you've been putting off a financial decision because it felt complicated, and today it just feels like, no, I know what I need to do here. Let me just do it. That shift from avoidance to clarity is very real under this sky. And it's not about becoming suddenly disciplined or motivated in a forced way. It's more like the energy clears enough space in your head that the practical reality becomes visible. And once you can see it, you can deal with it. I want to be specific about what this can look like because I think it's more useful than being vague. Someone today opens their banking app for the first time in 2 weeks, and instead of closing it immediately, they actually look at where the money went. They make a note. They make a decision. Someone else has been meaning to cancel 3 subscriptions they're not using, and today they just do it. In 5 minutes, without overthinking it. Someone who has owed a difficult phone call about finances to a family member finally picks up the phone. None of these are world-changing actions. But they're the kind of small, honest, practical moves that actually shift things over time. And today, those moves feel more available than usual. Now let's talk about work, because this is where things get really interesting today. A lot of people today are having a quiet but significant realization about their job situation. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It might just be this moment of sitting at your desk or on a call or in the middle of a task and thinking, I'm not growing here. Or, this is fine, but it's not where I'm headed. Or on the flip side, actually, this might be the right move. I think I should go for it. That second guessing you've been doing about a work decision? Today is a day when the second guessing quiets down. Aries energy is not a big fan of endless deliberation. It doesn't like going in circles. And when the moon is here, that quality bleeds into how you think. You get tired of the back and forth in your own head. You want to land somewhere, and often you do. If you've been thinking about asking for something at work, a raise, a new role, a change in your responsibilities, today you might just feel ready to actually do it. Not in an impulsive, poorly timed way, just in a, okay, I've been thinking about this long enough, let me just say it, kind of way. And the interesting thing is, when you approach those conversations from calm directness rather than from anxiety or over-preparation, they tend to go better. People respond to someone who knows what they want and can say it plainly. There are also people today who are having unexpected work-related conversations. Someone brings something up that changes how you see an opportunity. A colleague mentions something offhand and it plants a seed. You get an email or a message that opens a door you hadn't considered. These kinds of things happen more often on days like today because the energy is literally in motion. Things that were stationary start moving. And here's something I find really interesting about how this energy works in a professional context. A lot of people have a version of their career in their head, the version they're currently living, and then a slightly different version that they haven't fully admitted to yet, the one where they're doing something that actually matches what they're capable of, the one where they've made the ask, or taken the step, or said yes to the thing that felt slightly too big. Today, that second version feels less like a fantasy and more like a plan, like something you could actually move toward if you just decided to start. Some people today are going to look at their current job and realize they've outgrown it, not with bitterness, just with the simple recognition that they're ready for something more. And that recognition, when it comes with clarity rather than frustration, is genuinely useful because it means you're not leaving something out of anger. You're moving towards something because you're ready. That tends to produce much better outcomes. And for some people, not everyone, but some, today is the day they make a decision about work they've been putting off for weeks or even months, not because they were forced to, just because they finally felt ready to. And there's something about the specific quality of readiness today that feels solid, not impulsive, not reactive, just clear. There's also a version of this that shows up for people who have been thinking about building something on the side. A second income stream, a freelance project, a small business idea that's been living in a notebook for 6 months. Today is a day when those things stop feeling like vague ideas and start feeling like actual possibilities. Because Aries energy is fundamentally entrepreneurial. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't need everything to be guaranteed before it moves. It just needs a clear enough direction and a willingness to start. And today, for a lot of people, that combination is available. If you've been sitting on an idea, something you could offer, something you could build, something you could start, even in a small way, today is genuinely worth taking seriously as a launch point. Not because the timing is cosmically perfect, just because you're in a headspace right now where the excuses feel thinner and the possibility feels more real. That's a window, and windows don't stay open forever. Let me say something about the connection between money and self-worth, because I think it's relevant to what a lot of people are quietly feeling today. Sometimes when we avoid looking at our finances, or when we undersell ourselves at work, or when we accept less than we know we should be getting, it's not really about the money. It's about what we believe we deserve. And one of the things that can surface under this kind of sky is a quiet, practical shift in that belief. You look at a situation and you think, wait, why am I accepting this? Why haven't I pushed back on this? Why do I keep telling myself I'll deal with this later? And the honest answer, a lot of the time, is that it felt easier not to deal with it, or you weren't sure you had the standing to ask for more, or you talked yourself into believing the timing wasn't right. Today, a lot of that reasoning loses some of its grip. The Aries moon is not very interested in those kinds of stories. It's interested in action, in directness, in just handling the thing. So if you've been in a situation, financially or professionally, where you've been accepting something that doesn't quite match what you need, today might be the day you start moving in a different direction. Not explosively, just, I'm going to stop settling for this. I'm going to start asking for what I actually need. Let me take a few minutes now to explain the astrology, because even if you're not someone who follows this closely, I think this context is useful. The moon moves through all 12 zodiac signs over the course of a month, spending roughly 2.5 days in each one. Today, March 9th, it's in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's where everything starts. It's ruled by Mars, which is the planet associated with drive, action, ambition, and decisiveness. When the moon passes through Aries, it absorbs those qualities. Your emotional state becomes more action-oriented. Your instincts become sharper. Your tolerance for stalling drops noticeably. In practical terms, what this means is that decisions which required a long run-up suddenly feel manageable. Things you've been circling around become clear enough to act on. And the hesitation that usually sits between knowing something and actually doing something about it gets significantly thinner. The flip side, and I'll always be honest about this, is that Aries energy can push you to move faster than you should sometimes. It can make impatience feel like urgency. So the skill today is learning to tell the difference between genuine clarity, the kind where you just know, and restlessness dressed up as readiness. When you're moving from real clarity, things go well today. When you're just reacting out of feeling fed up, it can get messy. So bring a little awareness to that distinction. But for most people, today, the clarity is real. Now let me come back to the practical picture, because there's one more area I want to cover, and that's planning. Today is actually a surprisingly good day to sit down and make a real plan, not a vague intention, an actual plan. Because the mental sharpness that comes with this sky makes it easier to be specific. You can see the steps more clearly. You can prioritize without as much back and forth. You can set a goal and it doesn't feel abstract. It feels like a real thing you're going to do. If there's something in your life, financially, professionally, or in terms of what you're building toward, that's been sitting as a vague idea. Today might be the day to make it concrete. Write down the actual steps. Set the actual number you're working toward. Name the actual outcome you want. Aries energy responds really well to specificity. It doesn't like vague, it wants a target. And here's something worth saying about the people who take action today versus the people who don't. It's not about personality. It's not about who's braver or more motivated. It's about who trusts the clarity when they feel it. Some people, when they feel this kind of sharpness, this sudden sense of knowing what to do, they act on it. And some people talk themselves out of it. They wait for more confirmation. They wait for a better time. They wait until they're absolutely certain. But the thing about Aries energy is that it doesn't stick around waiting for you to feel certain enough. It moves. And if you want to move with it, today is your window. There's also something worth saying about people who've been in a period of financial recovery or professional rebuilding. If you've been working to get back on solid ground after a rough stretch, maybe the past year or two has involved some instability, some setbacks, some recalibration. Today might feel like a small but meaningful marker, like something is turning, not finished, not resolved, but turning, moving in the right direction. And that feeling, even when it's subtle, matters. It gives you something real to move toward. Some of you are not just thinking about the immediate practical stuff today. You're thinking longer term. What does your financial life actually look like in 2 years, in 5 years? Are you on track for that? Are the habits and decisions you're making right now moving you toward that version of your life, or are they quietly keeping you in the same place? Those are uncomfortable questions. Most of the time, we avoid them because the gap between where we are and where we want to be feels overwhelming when we look at it directly. But today, under this sky, that gap is easier to look at. Not because it's smaller, but because you're in a headspace where you can see it without shutting down. You can look at it and think, okay, This is the distance. Here's the next step. I can do the next step. And that's really what today is asking of you. Not to solve everything at once, not to overhaul your entire financial or professional life in one afternoon, just to take the next honest step. Make the plan, have the conversation, look at the number, send the message, say the thing, start the thing. One clear, real, honest move. That's it. And from there, the next one becomes visible. The broader theme of today, when you pull it all together, is this. Things that felt stuck on the practical level, money, work, plans, decisions, have more room to move right now. The energy is active, the clarity is available, and the window for taking action is genuinely open. You don't need everything to be perfect before you move. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the next step to be clear enough. And for a lot of people today, it is. That's how the Aries moon works best. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet courage to move when the path in front of you is clear enough to take one step forward. So whatever's been sitting on your plate, the financial thing you need to address, the work conversation you need to have, the plan you need to actually commit to, the decision you've been holding in limbo, today is a genuinely good day to move on it. Not because everything will be easy or guaranteed, but because you're more equipped right now than you were last week to see clearly and act on what you see. That's what today's alignment is offering. Use it. All right. I want to hear from you. What's been shifting in your life on the practical side today? Did you make a decision about money or work? Did something change in how you see your situation? Did you finally have a conversation you'd been putting off, or take a step you'd been sitting on for a while? Drop it in the comments below. I genuinely read them, and hearing what's actually happening for people on these specific days is one of my favorite parts of doing this. If this resonated with you, please hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I cover these astrological shifts regularly, and each one genuinely feels different from the last. You don't want to miss the ones that land right in the middle of what you're working through. Take care of yourselves today, and I'll see you in the next one.